Many people know Fred Rogers as the humble and gentle neighbor on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. For 30 minutes each day, Mr. Rogers invited children and their parents into his home for lessons on feelings and for discovery and for make-believe, all designed to bless children with a safe space for them on television. His gentle and open and honest spirit, I think, had a genuineness that children and adults were immediately drawn to. I know I was. Now, while he's most famous for his television show for children, he had wisdom born of his faith journey. Did you know that he was a Presbyterian minister? He went to seminary and was ordained. Yeah. He was a man who embodied his faith. And a lot of that came out in wisdom that he spoke in a variety of interviews over the years. You'll see that while he doesn't specifically talk in those interviews necessarily about God or Jesus or religion, man, it sure comes through in everything he says and does, right? His whole life spoke the gospel. And so I thought it would be good for us to focus maybe this month on some of his words. Today is World Communion Sunday. That Sunday when we gather with our sisters and brothers around the world at the table of Jesus for healing and for restoration. You know, in a world of pain and struggle, this seems to be good to start with these particular words of Fred Rogers. Listen to this. He said this one time: "There is no normal life that is free of pain. It's the very wrestling with our problems that can be the impetus for our growth." There's no normal life that is free of pain. Boy, isn't that the truth? I mean, I wish it weren't, right? But Jesus confesses it. He said, John 16:33, "In this life, you will have troubles." Every life, no matter how grand or how humble, has pain, right? Emotional pain, physical pain, spiritual pain. Pain in life is real, and it's a part of life. But Reverend Rogers concludes with another truth about life there. He said, wrestling with our problems can lead to growth. Could it be there's a purpose that can come out of pain? Well, pain is a sign that something is out of whack, right? Pain is a sign that something's gone wrong, and pain can push us to grow, to seek healing and wholeness. Pain can, in fact, be a gift that brings healing. You know, I have a friend who a while back was suddenly experiencing some pretty bad pain in his back. Now, initially he attributed that to the fact that he had helped his daughter move into a new apartment over the weekend. But the pain persisted far longer than a normal muscle strain should hang around. And so that pain sent him on a mission. So he went to his doctor, right? Pain, go to the doctor. It turned out to be a tumor. That pain signaled a problem. It sent him to his doctor, and that visit ultimately saved his life. His pain turned out to be a gift. The same thing can happen with emotional pain too, right? We know that. Someone hurts us, betrayal, criticism, anger, you name it. Now, we could let it fester and continue to wound us, right? We always have that choice. But pain can also be the impetus to push us into seeking reconciliation, especially when it gets to hurting bad enough. Or at the very least, it can help us to release our pain by offering forgiveness. Emotional pain can also send us to a doctor, right? To a professional, like a tumor or a broken bone. Emotional pain, psychiatric illness is very real and it requires professional help. The pain of it is a gift, I think, telling us that we need help and pushing us to reach out. That pushing us to reach out is actually the beginning of moving toward growth and healing ultimately. You know, the struggle is real and the pain is unpleasant to say the least. But each step teaches us and our doctors something and moves us toward wholeness. Finally, spiritual pain, right? Spiritual pain is another type of struggle that we all face that can help us grow. The Apostle Paul, I think, is a great example here. His spiritual struggle manifests itself in a couple of different ways and a couple of different times during his life. Paul didn't meet Jesus in Jesus's pre-crucifixion life. At least we don't have any sort of a record of that. But he knew all about Jesus, or at least he thought he did, right? He thought Jesus was an imposter, a pretender, someone who was claiming divinity falsely. And so in living out his very strong commitment to God and to his Jewish religion, Paul was persecuting people who were following Jesus. Well, out on a mission to stop Jesus's followers, Jesus, the risen Jesus, meets Paul out on the road in a light that literally blinded Paul for a time. Paul was forced to stop what he was doing. He had to let others guide him, and what they guided him to was to a truth that would ultimately heal him. It would heal him of his spiritual blindness. When he was ready for that, Christ healed him of his actual blindness. You know, Paul was a strong-willed, deeply committed and passionate person who wouldn't let anything keep him from wouldn't let anything get in his way from keeping his religion pure. There we go. I knew I could say that. God showed him, though, that he was blind to the truth by blinding him to everything, right? God used that. I wonder what it is that we're not seeing properly. I wonder where our lives need to be stopped so that we can see what we aren't seeing in God's perfect plan for us. I wonder how God will help us to see the health and wholeness that he wants for us. You know, another instance of spiritual pain that comes to mind when I think about Paul is found in 2 Corinthians 12. Paul writes that he's been given a thorn in the flesh, right? A thorn he's prayed repeatedly to have removed without relief. Well, Paul is now a true believer at this point in his ministry, but Paul is still Paul. I mean, aren't we all? Something deep in us isn't it who we are? Doesn't that remain on some level? He's so fully committed that there's the potential in his personality for him to go overboard, right? In the opposite direction. I mean, think about it. He has been given a couple of visions that no one else has ever received. You know, the first time meeting Christ on the road, and the second time he's literally drawn up into heaven to see something there that no human eyes had seen before, and that no human was to hear about now. He has been blessed in such an amazing way. It could trigger an all too human fault called pride, right? He was given a pain to help him with that. Listen to Paul in his own words, 2 Corinthians 12. I'm starting in verse 6. He says, even if I should choose to boast, I would not be a fool, because I would be speaking the truth. But I refrain, so no one will think more of me than is warranted by what I do say, or because of these surpassingly great revelations. Therefore, in order to keep me from being conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. Now here it is, listen. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, Paul writes, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sakes, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Now, we don't know what this thorn in the flesh was. Was it a literal thorn that continued, that had caused a wound that continued to fester? Was it a person who was a thorn in his flesh? We might call them a pain in the neck or a pain somewhere else. Was it a situation that wouldn't resolve itself? We don't know. We do know that Paul's passion and strength of character could cause tensions, right, in the people around him. One went so far as to cause a rift with one of his ministry partners. Paul was a passionate man, for sure, strong-willed and strong-minded and fully committed. Sometimes that works well for us. Sometimes that causes us problems. Paul may have had an encounter with Jesus, but Paul was still very much a human being. Whatever that thorn in the flesh is, God used it to help Paul stay grounded, to be humble, and to remember that it's God who makes him strong, not Paul's own doing. We could probably all use some form of a thorn in our flesh, couldn't we? But this struggle, Paul says, helped him to grow as a leader and as a person of faith. Now, let me return to Reverend Rogers' quote again. There is no normal life that is free of pain. True. It's the very wrestling with our problems, though, that can be the impetus for growth. There's one more person who struggled with pain that I think we should mention today on this World Communion Sunday. The writer of Hebrews puts our struggles into perspective in what he or she writes here, reminds us that the one who created us is not unaware of what we wrestle with and knows firsthand the growth and blessing that comes through suffering and struggle and pain. Listen to this. Hebrews 4, starting in verse 14, says, "Since then we have a great high priest, Jesus, who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast to our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, But we have one who in every respect has been tested as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore approach the throne of grace with boldness, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Oh, Christ wants to help us because he knows our struggle. Okay, so now continuing, Hebrews chapter 5, starting in verse 7, it says, "In the days of his flesh, Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears to the one who was able to save him from death. And he was heard because of his reverent submission. Although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered. And having been made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him." Jesus knows our struggle. And because he was made perfect in his obedience, we too become the source of, or he too becomes our source of salvation. Friends, we gather today at his table, knowing that the host is the one who suffered and died for us, the one who knows intimately our struggles and is the only one with the power to see us through those struggles all the way to new life. This, friends, is the good news for today and always. Amen. Amen.